Now, speaking of accountability and calling people out to their face, President Trump today called out the governor in Maine because she refuses to acknowledge his executive order banning men from playing in women's sports. Let's take a look at that.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal
Well,
laws.
we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Okay, well, number one, probably the biggest exchange here is about her political career. And I'm actually in agreement with President Trump here because politicians who defy common sense, sooner or later, it doesn't work out for them very well. I think we just went through that in this election, of course, all right? So that's number one. Number two, she can ignore reality all she wants. It doesn't really matter in the end because she'll lose. President Trump signed an executive order. There's no question about that. Title IX does not support men playing in women's sports. And also, the American people overwhelmingly rejected this. Again, you're seeing Democrats double down on issues that are not going to get them the results that they want. They want to be back in power. They got to let this go. But obviously, they won't. Again, I'm not complaining about it. But why don't we hear a few more details about this exchange?
Quite the scene there at the White House with the governor not backing down, saying, I will see you in court. If people couldn't hear, the president was also saying, are you going to comply with the law? And she said, I'm complying with the state and federal law. And Maine's stance right now is that federal law and state law bars discrimination of people, and that includes transgender Americans. And they see that executive order by President Trump barring transgender athletes from competing in sports as being violating people's civil rights. So that's where things stand. Definitely a showdown that's going to happen in the court, but also, as you saw, in the White House as well, Alex.
Think about how ridiculous their argument is. Okay, so President Trump is discriminating against trans athletes. Okay, let's go back to science. How can he discriminate against men playing in women's sports? It's against the law. Okay, there's a reason why you have men's sports and women's sports, and it's interesting how you don't hear it happening the other way, right? When's the last time you heard a trans athlete that was a woman wanted to be a man and competed against men? You don't hear that. Why? Because they're not going to be successful. Okay. I mean, this really defies common sense and logic. Now, the timing is so fitting because Libs of TikTok just put this up. This is literally 4 days ago. A boy pretending to be a girl who just won first place in the girls' Maine State Class B championship. Before he pretended to be a girl, he was 5th place on the boys' team. He's a cheater trying to invade women's spaces to get ahead. And here's a photo of that individual here on the left. There he is, coming in 5th place. And then on the right, against women, coming in first. So I think that kind of explains everything, right?
You can't allow boys to play women's sports or you're going to lose your federal funding. Does that hold up, do you think?
I think ultimately it will. You know, the Supreme Court has declined thus far to take up the issue of biological men in women's sports, but we are waiting for a decision from the Supreme Court on whether states can prohibit funding and the procedures, gender treatment for minors. I do think when they issue that decision, it's going to set the tone and it's certainly going to signal where they'll land on these other ones. But look, I think it's just, just as a matter of pragmatism, it's foolish for the governor of Maine and representing the state to defy the White House in this way. The White House has a lot of power and they have money and grants and funding to give. And so they're fully within their rights to say, look, you're not going to play ball, then you know what, we're not going to give you the money.
Yep, because ultimately Congress is the one who appropriates the money. And the executive branch can obviously divert the money if they want, but the money has to be spent one way or another, and they could choose whether they're going to send the money to that particular state or not. It's really that simple. So this is a lot of, obviously, politics that's not going to end well for the governor.